everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Big Idea. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Jason Seymour. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to ASEAN, and I have the distinct pleasure every episode of meeting someone who has turned a big idea into a reality. And today, our very special guest is Dr. Yoke Fan Chan. Hello, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much, Jason.
Such a pleasure to have you with us. Oh, yes. Such a pleasure to have you with us today. Everyone has been talking about COVID and living with the impact of COVID for the past year, and you are an infectious disease specialist, so you're going to have a variety of insights and information to share with the audience. But first, I want to talk to you about a very special honor you received. You were the recipient of the U.S. ASEAN Science Prize for Women in 2020. Congratulations for that achievement. And please tell our audience a little bit about what your research project was for that science prize.
Thanks, Jason. So the theme for the science prize last year was actually preventive healthcare. And I have the honor to actually present my work. So by the way, I'm a virologist by training. So I work on viruses, and basically the disease that I mainly work on is hand, foot, and mouth disease. And so we actually, in the laboratory, what we did was we tried to actually try different antivirals. We actually make vaccines, and we actually learn more about the virus through epidemiology, through sequencing and so on of the viruses. So we try to understand how the virus circulating in ASEAN and other parts of ASEAN and other parts of the world. And with that, it helps us to inform, more about the disease itself. And recently, I have also been involved in, a more interdisciplinary program whereby I actually work with educationists that actually makes modules for kindergartens, psychologists, and so on, and also computer scientists. So what we wanted to do in that particular interdisciplinary program was actually to map hand, foot, and mouth disease in Malaysia, and also to create a better, education module for learning hand, foot, and mouth disease, for telling them, how to prevent the disease itself, and by making it interactive and so on. So we were actually working together as a in different discipline. So it was really interesting. Each of us have different ideas, and that make up a better and more interesting project. So with that, actually, I actually won the prize for preventive healthcare, and of course, thank you to USAID and underwriters, and they actually are the one that sponsored the prize. Thank you.
I think everyone knows, or should know, that when it comes to good health, it is multifaceted, as you were saying. It's what you eat, it's how you treat yourself, it's your psychological well-being, it's vaccines, it's a whole range of things. So that is a smart way to approach a problem, to have all those different people trying to figure things out. Now, I do have a quick question for you at the top that I know a lot of people have been wondering about for the past year, and maybe you can help us understand, and that is there a difference between a coronavirus and a virus? Like, why do we say coronavirus instead of just there's this new virus? What's the distinction? Could you explain that for our audience?
Okay, so so for virologists, right, what is important is we actually classify viruses based on their properties, and we put them into different groups. Okay, so for example, first thing what we should define, we call germs. Okay, and germs can be having they can be actually good to you or can be bad germs. So not all germs are bad, because yogurts are made of germs as well, and beer as well. So they probably give some economic you can get some economic at the end benefits from some of the microbes or germs. So that is a layman term. But if the germs can actually cause disease, it's called a pathogen. So with that, a pathogen can be, again, once you actually reclassify it for a bit more technical, then you have bacteria, you have virus, and then you have fungi and so on. So with that, as layman, yes, you can know it as a virus. But for us virologists, and now with COVID-19, I think people should know what is coronavirus, because when you know a family, what exactly a virus, it's coronavirus is probably different from enterovirus, which I work on. It's because they have different distinct properties. So for example, if we talk about coronavirus, it will have an envelope. Okay, so if the virus itself has an envelope, it's lipid, and it can be easily dissolved by disinfectants such as alcohol. On the other hand, if you have an enterovirus, okay, we know all enteroviruses are actually non-envelope, means they don't have that layer of lipid. So with that, it's very hardy. So it doesn't actually, it's quite resistant to disinfectant. So therefore, using disinfectant is not very effective measures for enterovirus. So that to me, it is really important. You must know a virus, by its group per se, whether it's corona, whether it's an enterovirus, so it has its implications, prevention and fun as well.
We obviously picked a good recipient. You explained that so well. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I hope, the audience will understand what but I'm sure everyone knows now.
Well, we're not all going to have PhDs by the end of this conversation, but if you can just get a little bit more of an understanding, it's helpful. So everyone's talking about the coronavirus, COVID-19 of the past year. What viruses other than COVID-19 are you concerned about in Southeast Asia?
So when, of course, now that in Southeast Asia, we are definitely, of course, concerned about COVID-19, but actually, because Southeast Asia is a very diverse in economy in terms of, our population is rapidly growing and so on. So we have many other diseases. So I would actually say, first we have neglected tropical diseases. Okay, for example, malaria and tuberculosis, and they are mainly drug resistant. So that actually poses a very serious threat to Southeast Asia. And of course, emerging, the pandemic causing disease. And other than that, other than COVID-19, other emerging that we have actually Southeast Asia have experienced are, like example, diseases such as Nipah virus, avian influenza, SARS in 2003. And those are the diseases affected, Southeast Asia as a whole. And it is actually quite well known that a lot of people actually predicted that, Southeast Asia, Asia as a whole is actually a hotspot for emerging infectious diseases. That has to do with, our rapid urbanization and rapid growth. So the other last thing that I think infection that actually Southeast Asia is facing is actually vaccine preventable disease. So it is, I give two examples, particularly, specifically for Malaysia. For example, despite measles is a preventable disease, but we actually had a measles outbreak among our indigenous people. 15 Batik tribes, which are our very, I think it's very small tribes of Orang Asli Aborigine, but they actually died due to measles, which are highly preventable. And in 2019, just right before COVID-19, actually we had we reported 4 cases of polio as well. So it is what quite surprising is actually in Malaysia, polio has been absent for 27 years, you know, and we know very well polio it's in one of our list of virus to be eradicated. However, you know, because it's actually the cases are actually from immigrants, because it's in Sabah, so we have a lot of influx of, you know, illegal immigrants into Sabah, and we couldn't. I think, yeah, because we didn't manage to vaccinate them, so this happened.
Absolutely. Yes, obviously.
So
vaccinations are one of the most effective treatments for diseases such as measles and polio. If someone has not had the vaccine, is it a death sentence if someone gets it, or are there other ways to treat individuals who find themselves
okay. So
with those conditions?
What happened is some of these diseases, of course, they are not they are not, you know, they don't kill you. They don't kill most people, for example, right? But for diseases like measles, because, you know, if someone is malnourished and someone it's already do not have a very good hygiene and so on, then it can actually be fatal. So and I think it's pretty sad, you know, if a disease that is highly preventable, you know, did not reach the population, a vaccine that is not able to actually reach the population that we can actually prevent. So it is really access to a good healthcare system that actually failed in this instance.
Now, right now, the audience and I are getting very scared talking about the many infectious diseases that you just mentioned. But as you said, in many cases, these diseases, if you catch them, well, if you're not vaccinated and you catch one of these diseases, usually if you seek healthcare, if you take care of yourself, it's not a death sentence. You can still seek treatment. And that's why we all have to pay attention to our health and our bodies. And so I'm wondering, you mentioned hygiene. What are some hygiene tips that you wish everyone knew to help them not get one of the many infectious diseases that are around? What are we doing wrong that we could be doing better, or that we could be doing better?
Well, in one of my educational module for hand, foot, and mouth disease, I couldn't stress what is more important. It's of course the hand hygiene. So we didn't realize that, we always think we know how to wash our hands, but actually we probably do not know. And having the right techniques and doing it right, it's probably very important. So although of course in this pandemic, we stress how much, we got to disinfect every single surfaces and so on. But again, of course, to me, the most important thing that we should ever do is definitely wash our hands with soap, So with that, I think we can prevent really a lot of diseases. And of course that is provided, whether in all more rural places, do we actually provide them with clean water as well. So if they are able to actually drink clean water, then the chance of getting any microbes in the water is much lower. And of course, they can wash their hands with clean water and soap. That will actually ensure they get less chance of catching a disease as well.
I was doing a State Department program a few years back on hand washing, and I learned a very valuable tip. The area that people most often forget to wash is the thumbs. So a tip for the audience, remember those thumbs, because a lot of people wash like this and they forget those thumbs. So you're right, hand washing is a technique that people take for granted. They assume they're doing it correctly, but they're not always. So these are things for us, things that we should pay attention, a little more close attention to. So I just want to pause for a moment and say hello to our audience. We would love to take some questions from you. If you have questions about infectious diseases or viruses or the coronavirus, please feel welcome to put your questions in the chat box and I'll share them with the good doctor. So you won the US ASEAN Science Prize for Women. So a lot of young girls, young women are concerned about going into the scientific field. They're concerned that they might experience harassment or they may not be able to achieve their dreams. What have you seen in your research in Malaysia, your exposure to Southeast Asia? What's your sense of the opportunities for women scientists?
In Malaysia, I think we are very fortunate. We have quite a gender equality of scientists in Malaysia. And with that, I must say I have not personally experienced any discrimination as a women scientist per se. So in fact, I have very encouraged. I'm particularly very encouraged when I actually got appointed as the head of department, and also I have actually female deans who are there, to become a mentor as well as an icon that you can look up to. So I think having those role models and seeing females around you in management role has been quite a very it's very positive, and it keep me going when you actually doubt yourself, can I do this, can I do that, so I think it has been very helpful that I've seen more and more female appointed in management role. And of course, as a whole, I personally also need encouragement. Not that I mean, of course, I'm there also learning how to encourage, other younger female as well. So I think, putting role models out there, it's actually very important. And we don't really see that much of discrimination. Whereas I must point out, I have read among in virology field, so that's this professor called Professor Anne Baumobert. So she actually published a very interesting statistic in Journal of Virology. So what she did was she actually compared 4 virology conferences over the last couple of decades, in 1980s to currently. So what she did was she pulled out all the data, who are invited as speakers, and then she compared that, how many females are actually becoming keynote speakers, how many females are becoming, invited speakers, and so on. So she found that, when she compared the ratio of female to male, she found that, in the year before year 2000s, they were only like 20%. But then, after 2010, she found there was a slight improvement up to over close to 40%. And recently, in the last 3 years, she found that finally, we see a gender equality, that is about 50% female, 50% male. So she concluded in her paper that, also she looked at, who selects the speaker. So she found that, if a female is in the panel to actually select speakers, that correlates with better gender parity. So with that in mind, that paper was a bit, it actually send me a lot of reminder. For example, as a a female in a management role. So it simply means that it is each of us, our role to actually play a part to actually make gender equality a reality.
Well, that is inspiring. I'm so happy to hear you've had such a good experience and that the situation is improving. It's certainly a US value that every woman, every girl, every man, every boy, if he or she is interested in the sciences, should have an opportunity to do so, and no discrimination should get in the way. We do have a question from a loyal audience member, Skylar, who's wondering, have you ever been in a situation where people have said, oh, you only got that position because you're a woman? You only got that recognition, that award because you're a woman. Have you ever had that kind of a situation? Has anyone ever told you that? I hope not.
I must say not really. I mean, I think a lot of times it's I must say we doubt ourselves a lot. I must say I doubt myself a lot as well. So when when I get into my head of department, I basically have to go for an interview. So there were a few couple, there were a male candidate and there were another female candidate. So three of us went for an interview with our vice chancellor, and I was stunned. I got the position because I do expect, a male will get it anyway, right? I mean, but again, it's because also the male was previously our head of department. So again, it's not, it's, to me, I think the first problem with that, it's actually female tends to doubt ourselves, and we have to improve in this kind of confidence in ourselves. And the second is, I think, why a lot of people ask me, why am I all winning awards and why is there no male awards? So to me, why we are having all these female awards and why, I grabbed the opportunity to actually win them, it's because, to me, it's an opportunity for me to reach a larger audience, to showcase to them, with the right science, with the right attitude, you can actually go far, even though you are actually only in ASEAN. And of course, why are we not supporting male is because there are just so many of them out there. so when we talk about equality, I think we have to be fair that at the end female is the one that is lagging behind. So therefore, there's a need for us to to raise up more females in STEM, by giving them all these role models and so on. So I think that's the reason why we are supporting females.
Well, there have been barriers put in the way of women trying to enter certain fields, but the day will come, we are all optimistic, the day will come when it won't make any sense to have a specific prize for women. We're not quite there yet, but as you said, we're getting there. So that day will come.
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, we don't need to actually, the day when, since, like I mentioned to you, the statistic, we have reached a gender equality. I think, in the day to come, I'm just hoping the day gender will not make a difference. We don't even need to state our gender in any, whether you just go by name and if you're good, you're good. It doesn't need to be a female scientist, a male scientist, and so on.
I do want to ask you another topic as well, that the time is just going by. In the past year in the United States and a variety of countries, there has been a perception that the information given about COVID-19 has been touched by politics, social issues, that it hasn't been just pure science. So please share your thoughts. What do scientists do? What techniques do they employ to try to make sure that they are coming to true conclusions, that they're keeping the politics and all the other factors out of the way, they're their conclusions, and it's really just about the science. How do science keep politics out of science?
To be on, I'm in my opinion, I think, good science, no matter how good it is, if it's good, it should be implemented. And to be implemented into policy, you need politics. So to me, as example, in this COVID-19, if you have good science, you won't tackle the pandemic. It's not sufficient to tackle the pandemic. You need good politics too. So I illustrate that with, one example which I find, how good science and good politics actually merge together and we receive a success. So I've seen, how, for example, from a vaccine, mRNA, Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, you see all the whatever vaccines that are already in the pipeline, and amazingly, funding volunteers to actually take the clinical trial approval and FDA approval and so many other approvals, right? They all can be done in a year. And this whole process, without political will, typically it's a long process for every single scientist. It typically can take 7 to 15 years. But it is with a political will, with the need for us to actually have the vaccine, therefore we actually got it in a year. So to me, science has to be driven by politics. So at the same time, how we also, when we first have the Wuhan genomic sequences, and then the scientists share it, and then there were political will to actually, share it with the world, and that's where now we have the vaccine. So those are the examples how science actually work together with politics, and that actually, now today we have vaccine for COVID-19. And the other thing I've seen, of course, it's how politics works without, science as well. For example, I've seen like we deny the fact, for example, SARS-CoV-2, the virus actually do not spread through aerosol, and therefore, we allow people not to wear masks, we allow mass gathering, we allow, election, political election, and so on. So with that, we have seen many clusters of COVID-19. So I in that sense, I wish, science have guided, a risk-based actually COVID-19 prevention. So I must stress, I think I've seen, as a whole, if science, we just do science without putting into real life, and then without having direct effect to people's life, I think it is only politics that can actually bring science to life, to bring it to the society. You must have politics to be able to do that. And that is what I've seen in our COVID-19 vaccine.
That was fascinating. You put that in such an interesting way. And my favorite part of what you were saying and implying, not a direct quote, but you were implying that sometimes government bureaucrats can do things for the public good, and they can make life better. They can work with scientists to make life better. I certainly, as a government bureaucrat, would like to think I do good things.
Yeah, I think as a whole, you and me are doing good, to actually disseminate the right message as well.
So we do have another question from our audience. This is from, and I hope I say your name correctly, Ying Xian Go. And she's asking, Dr. Chan, is there any advice you would have for a young scientist or postgraduate who is starting up a career. So she's just starting out with her career, he or she, I don't know the sex of the individual, yeah. But probably a she. But any advice for someone who's just finishing the academic part of the career and now looking to, to find the next step in the journey of being a scientist?
I think I feel I was very lucky in that sense. Maybe 15 years ago, it wasn't difficult to actually kickstart my scientific career. It was really easy. It was kind of like you finish, you get a position and you kickstart it. To me, I think now things are getting much more difficult and much more challenging, but I think the gist of it is one should not give up. I think what one should do, of course, first is continue. First is to do good science, to develop your your hardcore science and have a good CV. It's very important. And the second thing is, sometimes we always think, ultimately a scientific career means an academic career. But I think we have to stop thinking that way. A lot of people always think, having a scientific career means you have to go to university and teach. But I beg to differ that from, from the actual scientific career right now. There are many other types of career that require science. For example, you can become a science communicator, you can write, you can become a publisher, you can actually become a technical specialist, you can work in industry. There are many, you can work in a vaccine. I just read Singapore more, I think has Pfizer is Moderna and Pfizer. It's going to open up a factory, in Singapore. So there are many other industrial opportunities rather than that we confine ourselves to just academic. And of course, I must stress, academic career it's not meant for everyone. And looking out career elsewhere, doing your postdoc to gain experience in different places, and that to me it's also very important. So I would encourage her to actually try different things, do different things, and that will actually increase her experience, and that will help her a lot in her next plan for her scientific career.
Excellent advice. Think broadly, lots of opportunities. And also, I just should add that the U.S. mission to ASEAN has a program called the Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative. And if you become a member, we can help you find mentors. We have tens of thousands of people interested in all kinds of topics, including the sciences, and finding mentors, finding role models is so key to a career path. So I did want to ask you as well, you had the opportunity to go to the United States. The US government helped you to go there for a special program. Please share that story with our audience.
So I was very fortunate, of course, I work with viruses, so we need to actually handle the viruses properly. Of course, that's actually a different, we call it biosafety. That means how to keep what we are working safely from the public as well, and to make sure it's safe for ourselves as well. So I had a couple of opportunities to actually travel with travel grants from US to actually Colorado, to Atlanta. I've been to CDC. I have actually been trained in a few different programs in Emory as well as in Atlanta, Emory, which is Atlanta, and Colorado. And those programs are great because they really give me a confidence, to actually help me to to ensure that, the culture of safety, the culture of doing good science, to make sure, what I'm working is safe for myself as well as the environment. So I think, with that, we have always been training our postgraduates locally to actually make sure always do safe science, not just, work, in a way that, it's not safe for yourself and not safe for others. So preventing a laboratory acquired infection is utmost important for us, not just, publishing paper.
Absolutely. And when you were in the state of Georgia, did you get to do any sightseeing?
No.
Oh,
it usually, it's always very like, if you go there for we have a 12 hours difference. So by the time, if you stay for 1 week or 2 weeks after the course, you would have you are half day because you have already jumbled up your timing, and you'll be jet lagged and so on. So usually most of the time I didn't really have much chance to really stay back, unfortunately. So I've seen very little of US actually. So that's the unfortunate bit. So I'm sure one day, I'll be there just for holidays.
Absolutely. And Ying Xian Go asked another question, either in the US or in Southeast Asia, have you picked up any good tips for researchers who want to conduct interdisciplinary research? You mentioned that at the beginning of our talk. What is a good tip for collaborating with scientists that are coming to a problem with a very different perspective than you may be? You were a virologist, you worked with others. What are tips for bringing all these different scientists together?
Well, when I first started that, I think the first challenge was actually I realized we talk different languages. So so it was like I have to remind myself to do not use my lingo. I have to remind myself, you have to simplify your learning, your outcome of your project and things like that in small bites that it's that can be understood by computer scientists or by a kindergarten teacher. So I myself have to learn a lot to be very clear what do I want to achieve in the project. If for example, I lead that program, so I need to be very clear. Ultimately, what do I want to see, and then I need to actually convey that very clearly to my collaborators. Because with what I have in mind, then they can understand it from that perspective, and then they can chip in their idea, and then they can add what potentially extra things that they can add to what I already think will work. So I think that's the fun part of the collaborative effort, because you thought of it like as in just A, but then they say, oh no, I can actually do A, B, C for you. That was really amazing for me. So I think that was the exciting part of doing interdisciplinary research. But of course, communication and keep communicating, it's really a challenge, and also communicate correctly, it's not easy.
That's an excellent tip, though. But if you have a solid sense of what your goal is going into the discussions, going into the project, that will be very helpful on many levels for yourself as well as the rest of the team. So that is an excellent tip. So Ying Xian Go is asking about, she wants to extend collaborative or research ideas. She wants to collaborate with ASEAN members and Americans. And I just say to Ying Xian Go, reach out to us, share your ideas with us. We're very interested in what kind of collaborative projects you have, and maybe we could work something out. Or if it makes sense, we'll help you reach out to Dr. Chan and we'll move it forward, because she has just given us a ton of questions here, which we're not going to be able to get to because we're basically at the end of our chat. but I do want to ask you one more question. If I come to see you in Malaysia and I get to meet you, what is a good time of year to visit Malaysia? Is there a special holiday or a really good time weather-wise? What's the best time to come and visit you, if I can, when I'm allowed to, in Malaysia?
Well, Jason, you must already know ASEAN, right? We have 4 seasons: summer, 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 summer. So any time of the year is good. We probably have a bit of rainy season, so if you don't really love the rain, however, that cannot really, to be honest, cannot be avoided, unfortunately. If you do not like humid, so probably end of the year it's a good time. Then it'd be quite cooling because every day it rains. And I must say, I think we have it really depends on your interest. I would recommend, climbing Mount Kinabalu, or going to, our islands, where it's like a paradise for any Westerner, I guess. I'm pretty sure we have, to be honest, all ASEAN countries that I've met. I had the opportunity also to be sponsored by US to actually attend. We went to a group of ASEAN, a few of us actually. We went to Seychelles, and to be honest, we think ASEAN beach are way better. Seychelles can't beat ASEAN beaches.
All right, fantastic. Well, I will get to Malaysia at some point, explore your beautiful beaches, see your beautiful mountains, and we'll talk more about science. I would keep you for another hour if I could, because this just flew by. Thank you so much for your insights and your tips. Really appreciate what you're doing. Congratulations again on the US Science Prize for Women 2020. And for anyone in the audience who is interested in this program, we'll put some more information about the prize in the description to the video. And of course, you can always reach out to us on our various platforms for more information. So thank you, audience, for joining us. Wow, we had so many good questions from you. We couldn't get to them all. Sorry about that. But thank you for joining us for the show. And until the next time, take care.